So it's 9 o'clock, and we welcome everybody to this IDEIS webinar. I think it's the third in our follow-up series after about the IDEIS 5 highlights. And now today we'll be talking about the building as a PV power station. So there'll be a focus on the new PV facilities, but we will also talk about the new things that are needed for looking at energy production and conversion between different sources in the building. Sorry, let me close some windows there. So I have just one introductory slide to show. So we have, as we mentioned already at the highlight seminar, 3 overarching goals for IDEIS 5. Improved indoor climate prediction, both in terms of daylight and thermal climate. And then the second one is the building as a prosumer, which means that the building both produces and consumes energy. And this is what we will be talking about today. And then coming up, we still have 2 more webinars, and within them we will, among other things, concentrate on optimization and the cloud implementation. I'll come back to the upcoming webinars towards the end. Right, so IDEIS in the new energy landscape. I guess it hasn't escaped many of you that we're likely to have to change a lot in the way we live in the whole world. And as you know, buildings use a very large proportion of the energy flow in the world, and so we have a big responsibility on our shoulders. And in most buildings regulation schemes, there'll quite soon be a requirement for zero energy buildings. So what has been quite exotic so far will very soon be a reality in many places. And in order to create a zero energy building, in most cases you will have to rely on PV. So that means that the large portions of the surfaces of the building will be covered by PV. And that means that we can't just put PV like it has been mostly today in favorable and unshaded conditions, but we will have to put PV almost everywhere on a building, and also on partially shaded surfaces. And this is not so easy, as you will find out later, that the shading of PV is far from trivial issue. This is one of the big things we will talk about today. And another reflection, I think, is that, you know, so far we've aimed at being able to predict energy use of a building as accurately as possible. We're talking about a few % off and so on. But then on the other hand, so far when we've looked at the yield from a PV system, we've been happy with just getting some order of magnitude figures. But in a zero energy building, the PV yield will be just as important to get accurate as the energy use of the building. So that's something to bring with you as well. And these buildings will also, I mean, as you know, the PV yield rarely matches with the needs you have, both on a seasonal and on a daily basis. So storage of electricity in different ways will be very important in the building. And in this new prosumer world, buildings are also likely to trade energy in different ways with the networks it's connected to. And this calls also for a lot of new things in terms of being able to describe and study such trading algorithms. And we hope that the new IDEIS 5 will also provide a framework for that. So our speakers today I'm actually just going to moderate a little bit. The main speaker is Sven Mossberger, and speakers are Sven Mossberger and William Salari. Sven is the head of our German company, and he also has a lot of experience in PV. He has a lot of PV on his own house, and he has also done his PhD in this field. And William Salari is working in our office in Stockholm as a modeling expert, and he has also deep experience in PV, and he's done most of the background modeling work for the PV application, so he knows this deeply. Sven will concentrate on showing some how this is done practically in the tool around an example, and then William will pick up and show and tell you a little bit more about the background and what the technologies are for coming to grips with these shading issues that I was talking about. So with that, I'll hand that over to you, Sven. Thank you.
Thanks, Per, and good morning to everybody from my side. Hope you see my screen now. Is that okay?
We do, yes.
Yeah, okay. And I would like now to present the whole PV approach using a handy example. This is a single family house which is supplied exclusively with electrical energy. Yeah, so just to present that. And then we start with a new important object in IDIs. It's the energy contracts here. You can see here that such contract can exist for different energy carriers. So you have electricity, fuel, district, well, coal and heat here. These contracts include so-called weighting factors, which convert actually the purchased energy into energy costs, total primary energy, but also non-renewable part of primary energy, CO2 emission. In the future, it will be possible to add other your own weighting factors. For example, in the Swiss standards, you have the environmental impact points as another possible weighting factor. In IDIS 5 now also all factors can vary in time, so you can select schedules for these weighting factors. So first of all, we look at the energy report here of this. It's of a yearly energy calculation for this system. Now without on-site produced PV electricity, and consequently here the overall energy performance report consists only of the purchased energy and its weighting factors with its weightings here. So you see we have a use of 6.6 megawatt hours per year. We have the costs here, and due to the weighting factors, we have quite a lot more primary energy need. So we have this factor of, I think it was 2.5 here. There is also a renewable energy ratio. So the part of the renewable primary energy that we use here is just 8%. So it's not a lot. Further below, we can see the monthly values of the energy use, which corresponds to that of purchased electricity. So here is the purchased electricity, and it's actually twice the same. The values here are divided among the different energy meters used in the model. Yeah, as we already know from IDIS 4.8 actually. So now we want to investigate what the energy performance of the house looks like when it is covered with PV. We already have done a whole year daylight simulation, and we can have a look here now at the yearly insolation on the surface of the building, and we can see that especially the upper part of the roof seems to be very good for being covered with PV. So to start with the rough potential study, we insert from general view an electrical system to the central systems here. So this is also a new object for IDIS 5. And here in the electrical system, first of all, we insert the generic photovoltaics. That's actually what you did in the plant in IDIS 4.8. So still not much new things, but here we can select one surface. I select 10 square meters and I select the orientation of my roof here. Also the overall efficiency of this PV can be selected here. And we'll find it in the 3D view. If you want, you can shift this panel to the right place, or approximately to the right place where you want to have it. I place it somewhere where it is unshaded. That's what I want to investigate, is the potential of this roof area, very roughly. Yeah, so this model was already done, and we can see at the same results with this photovoltaics right now. Well, yes, before we do that, I wanted to show again the energy contracts, because we don't only have rates here, weighting factors for import or for purchase, we also have it for export. You can see that the only relevant contract is the electrical contract here, and actually in our case now, all these weighting factors, these ecological weighting factors, are the same for import and export. And ISO 52001 provides that when electricity that has not been certified is exported back to the grid, the weighting factors may remain the same, and thus the exported electricity is interpreted actually as avoiding consumption from the electricity mix. And however, if there is a special compensation for solar electricity and you really sell solar electricity, only the correspondingly lower weighted electricity may be deducted from the consumption. So if you sell electricity as solar energy, this primary energy factor here will be 1, and the non-renewable will be 0. That means that you don't you give back you actually it will be a less profit for your building if your goal is to reach a 0 energy building, because you sell your electricity, actually your solar electricity, to someone else, and it is not rated for your building. That's the idea behind. So now looking at these results, here we had it. We see that the total energy performance here is now completed with 2 more rows. So we have still the purchased energy, which is now lower. So the total is still 6.6 megawatt hours. But out of these, we have to purchase 4.4. So it's actually still 2/3 of the whole usage. But we also have a production which is much higher actually than that. But you see that we right now have to export a lot of this. You can see it down here in the used and produced diagram. We see that we still have the same electricity used than we have before. It's just another scale here. But now produced electricity is subtracted from it. So we have here a total balance, and PV production actually exceeds the annual average use by far. But not the same is true for the winter months. Here we still use more energy than we produce. So we can see here a seasonal asynchronity, we can say. In the purchased and exported overview, we can also see that even in the summer months, we need to purchase electricity, and in the winter months we still export energy. Also, we actually need a lot. This is of course due to energy used during nighttime. It should be clear that both difference curves here, this one and this one, used, produced, and purchased, exported, are the same. So going back to the first table, we can read that we still need to purchase this 2/3 here. That's what I mentioned already. Yeah. But we also see that the total primary energy performance, for instance here, but also the total CO2 emission, even the costs, they are all negative, and this means actually that this house is more than a zero energy. It's actually a plus energy house in this moment. So that's because we have quite a big surface here. Okay, I now close this and reopen the one without any PV. And I would like now to go a bit more into detail. And here in the palette, in the 3D view, you can see that we have two kinds of PV panel. It's actually the PV panel. It's called PV panel. It's we can also say it's a DC panel, and we have an AC panel, which means that the panel itself contains an inverter, and it also means that all the panels are kind of independent, so they can be shaded independently, and they will not mismatch. William will tell more about these things. So let's start with this AC panel. We insert this AC panel. We select a model for that. Right now, also, if you look at this model, you can see that there is an inverter, an included inverter there. So we place it here, and we make a grid here. I start with 3 panel. It's a small workaround because I need to place this panel now a bit to the edge here, because I want to select actually 11 panels now. I have to calculate X max and keep X step here in order to get these 11 panels on my roof. This is probably not enough. We saw before in the yearly installation that this dormer roof can be good. So I place another panel here. Actually, I need to place it somewhere here. And before I do the grid, I do here a tilt as well, a tilt angle. Must be negative in order to be tilted the right way. So you see that we can slightly tilt that. You will see soon why. I will do 2 rows and 3 columns, and the distance in the rows should be 2 meters. And like this, you will see this is about the view of the sun, that we have no self-shading between these rows, or almost no shading. In this field here is in these strings here, we also can insert a gap. So we can here make a distance in Z direction. That means that if you have a look now at these cells, you will, you didn't see it, but they jumped a bit in a distance of the roof, and you can see now there is a small gap. It's also possible to open that and change the thickness of the gap. There are some leaks and so on. It's to calculate the backside ventilation, they will cool the solar cells, and this will be good for efficiency. So we now go to the result of this case. I think it's this one, yes, here. And in the used produced overview again diagram, no, let's first start here. So you can see that we produce now 5,000 megawatts, so it's almost the same amount of this 6.5 that we use. And in the use produced diagram, we can see that we now use slightly less heating energy. Well, yeah, before it was slightly more. Maybe I can jump back. No, it was not this one. It was this one, just to show. Where was it? Here. Just the right diagram. So electricity for heating was 2,890. Now it's 2,790. And this is due to the PV backside ventilation gap I just showed. It is thermally connected to the roof and now helps heating the building a bit. We can also see that now we have a higher renewable energy ratio of 60%. Yeah, here instead of 8% before. This is the on-site produced part. It's slightly lower. And looking to the purchase and export energy overview, we can again see that we have to purchase electricity also during the summer here. And we export during winter a bit. And to avoid this, we can now insert a battery. So let's do that. We go back to the electrical system. And here we can insert the battery also. And we can load again a product here. And we can size this by selecting the number of units. And we have to select a charger. And with the charging and discharging schedules here, we can define time periods when charging from grid is allowed, or discharging for electricity use is not allowed. Yeah, with this, we will get quite a good synchronity then at the end. Let's maybe show that you can now invoke. Oh, no, you can't. That's maybe. Well, let's skip that. So as you are used in the plant, you can invoke this and build the schematic just of the electrical system. I don't know why it does not work right now. Let's
if you just run it for maybe 1 or 2 seconds, then the invoking works. So
okay, I just started.
If you just simulate a maybe a small.
Okay. Oh,
maybe it is enough. Yeah, you can cancel it.
I could maybe even. And now it's built already.
Yeah, now you can open it.
Wow.
Yeah, let's not spend time navigating around bugs here.
It's just to show that you have the PV gap here. You have some modules. You have the battery here and the energy management system, the charger, and so on. Yeah. So that's this point, and now I go further to the results again. Yeah, and with our battery now, we can see that this is different here. So we only export in summer and we only purchase in winter because the battery can save electricity from day to night, of course. Yeah, but we also see that we have a bit of battery losses here, actually, and that's the gray part of this. So we use a bit of electricity for that. We pay for that a little bit. And actually, at the end, these results here are not really better. I think it's even just the costs that we profit, and our primary energy is not better due to that. Yeah, so that's about it of the demo. I just wanted to show you a few slides just to mention that what we looked at now was a purely electrical system, actually. And however, the whole energy reporting will be extended later on the one hand with further report possibilities, and on the other hand, the same approach should be possible with different energy carriers. Fuel, for instance, can be purchased from other contracts and used by a gas boiler here that generates heat. And after optional storage, this heat can be used within the building. System heat losses can occur, as well as heat recovery then. And other energy sources at the assessment boundary here can be environment heat, and that's also something that we need to work a little bit to develop a little bit further to cover that in the sense of the ISO standard. Such usually low temperature heat can then be used by other generators called heat pump here, and that will, together with use of electricity, generate heat, higher temperature heat that again can be used in the building. That was my part. I give back to you, Per.
Okay, thanks very much, Sven. Just before I introduce William, I just wanted to say that I realized that there will be, it was in a sense good that Sven ran into a little bug here, because these things are there are quite a lot of problems still that we haven't been able to fix fully. Another thing is that this reporting framework, this ISO standard that Sven was talking about, is also incomplete, I would say, for two reasons. One is that we just haven't had time to finish all of these things properly, so there's still things to do in the coming beta releases, but also that there's actually, this ISO standard is very complicated, and there's actually controversy around how to interpret some of these things. So it's not crystal clear how to do this if you read the standard, and we're trying to navigate between different countries' interpretation of this and find our own. So this is quite complex territory, and this is probably going to be with us for a while, and you will have to bear with us and with the people working on this standard to get this right. But it's uncontroversial that this, as you can see, probably there are a lot of things to think about here with these weighting factors and all of the different energy conversions that will be possible, and a new framework for keeping track of this is absolutely needed and right. So with that, I will introduce William, and William is our expert on PV and has developed most of these models. He will tell you a little bit more about the theoretical background. And Sven didn't spend so much time talking about the shading of PV cells, but you will hear plenty of that now. And there's actually quite a lot of stuff to learn in this. We thought that this would be a good opportunity to start this introduction. So over to you, William. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So my name is William Salari, and I'm going to start with some basic about the fuel, about the photovoltaic system. Do you see my full screen of
Yes,
that?
we do. Good.
Okay, perfect. So the things which I'm starting with some basic, and I'm sure that most of you know much more details about some basic which I'm going to talk, but it's very important to start with this basic, and so it will help us to understand more about what we have in the IDIs for PV system. So let's starting from what is the PV panel, what is a PV string. So we can say that the majority of the market right now is belong to the monocrystalline and polycrystalline silicon technology, and especially those PV module which is based on 60 cell and 70 cells. So we are mainly discussing about this type in this presentation. So if we look into, for example, this is an example of the PV module. It consists of 60 cell, and we have here, as you see, we have the cells which are connected in series to form cell strings, and each cell strings inside the PV module can be switched off and switched on, and this is by this diode or bypass diode which is connected to it. So in case of any small amount of shade in one of the cells, so this bypass diode can be activated, and due to the activation of this bypass diode, this part of the panel can be switched off. So we name it submodule or cell strings. So it means that during the shade, this submodule can be switched off, and to minimize the effect from one side to the other part of the string, and from other side to protect, for the protection of the cells and for protection of the modules. So if we talk about the 60 cell and 70 cells, sorry, I should back to the first step. So normally we name it as a standard PV module because most of the product in the market are compatible with this type of the panels. So there is a DC optimizer, microinverter, and even the string. They are very sorry, I lost. Yeah, they are compatible with this type of cell technologies. And so to make a string, we normally need to connect the PV modules in series. And so to know how many of them can be connected, we need to look into the inverter. So in the inverter, there is a limitation for the voltage. Based on that voltage, we can connect, we can add the string together and to reach to the maximum limit of the inverter. So normally the inverter have the responsibility to get the power from the string to DC power and convert it to the AC power. So the AC power which inverter is produced need to be synchronized with the grid, and in some cases that the grid is not available or due to the power outage on the grid, so it can interrupt also the production of the PV system. And the other functionality which is important and need to talk about, it's about the maximum power point. So it means that the inverter always should be able to get as much as power which is available in the string. So it should be able to extract the maximum amount of the power from the string. For the inverter, in some cases there is just one input as for the string connection, and in some cases we have more than one input. It can be 2 or 3 input, and in that case the orientation of the strings and even the type of the panel, the number of the panel, they can also be different. So here you see that we have a curve. In this curve describing the performance of the in the first level in the cell, and if we don't have any shade, it can be the performance of the module or performance of the even PV string. So in the curve, if you see, we have the 3 point. This point is the open circuit voltage, so it means that it gives the highest voltage of the string. This point is the maximum power which we can get, and this is the short circuit. So the something which is very important during the operating is to be exactly in this point, and this is the P max or maximum power point. So this is the responsibility of the inverter to find and search to find this point. And in some cases, when we have the shade in the system, shade on the string, then the shape of the curve is not like this. The curve has several peaks on it, and sometimes it can be very challenging for the inverter to find the exact point, and also some challenge in the making model and simulation. So the next slide, it's about the DC optimizer. So normally the DC optimizer are available in two types. One type of DC optimizer is for each panel. So each panel is the output of the panel can be connected to the optimizer, and from other side, the optimizer can regulate the current to the current of the string. So in these cases, it can increase the current always to reach to the current of the string to reduce the mismatch losses. So, if you see here, maybe it's better to also explain the other type of the DC optimizer, which they are based on cell string level. So each sub-module can have one DC optimizer to do the same functionality. But in this case, we don't have any bypass diode. So the bypass diode is replaced with the this type of optimizer. So the size of the optimizer is not as big as you see here. It's a small IC which can be normally will be integrated in the factory. So, but this type of optimizer user can do it by themselves. So if we just compare them, how it will be affected by some small amount of the shade. If you can see here, we have just on one of the cells, it's about 50% of the cell is shaded in the both cases. And due to that level of the shade, this bypass diode is activated and switched off this part of the panel. So the production of this panel is reduced to 165 watt. So with exactly the same condition on the other integration with the bypass diode on the other module, we can see that even during that shade, so that part is not switched off. So it can still produce about 50% of the power. So we can extract much more power by, especially for this case, for this type of the DC optimizers. So the application of DC optimizers, it can be, for example, for reducing the effect of the shade on the string. On a string we have about a 6 panel, and 3 of them are have the potential of receiving shade from this shade object. So if we add some optimizers to those panels, probably we can get a better production out of this PV system. Another type of the application which we can use the DC optimizer is like this. We have a building with several orientation, and we want to just make one string for all of them. So it is possible to add optimizer to those panels and just connect them in series in one, and then connect them to the input of an inverter. So the other conventional method is just to have a different string, one string here, one and other string here, and each string can be connected to one independent MPPT of the inverter. So let's see about the economy, because always we should consider when we produce electricity, we should consider how much is the cost of the production. So for adding the optimizer, of course, we can increase the production, but it also involves 20% to 60% increase the cost. So if this 20% is regarding the reference price for the PV module, so if we consider 50 cents per watt for PV module, then the 20% extra to 60% extra should be considered. So this is graphically show the different type of the optimization which can be considered. The first is the microinverter, which is probably the most expensive right now, and the other is the cell string optimizer, which is just a IC to do the DC-DC conversion. So it is normally it is very difficult to estimate that which solution is more economical, but by making a model and running the simulation, it will help to economically evaluate the application of the optimizer in the system. So this is about the microinverter, which Sven talked about. So each PV panel have a an inverter, a small inverter connected to this. And so it is the have highest flexibility because it's possible to have just one panel and one inverter and produce power and use the power also. And at any time it can be scaled, the system can be scaled up to any size. So this is then we have it as the name of AC panel in the IDIs, but AC panel means that a DC panel which is integrated with a micro inverter. So in the IDIs we have the different, right now we have a different model for production of electricity from renewable sites, for example, from wind turbine, from a photovoltaic system with different component in the photovoltaic system. And also we can use the fuel burning systems such as CHP to produce heat and power at the same time. We have the possibility to use the battery to store the electricity, and also this battery will affect to increase the self-consumption of the locally produced electricity, which is very important in the hybrid energy system and microgrid application. So we have the charger for the battery and energy management system, which will decide how to cycle the battery and how to interact with the grid and with the loads. So in the battery, we have also the possibility to consider the aging effect due to the calendar life and the cycling. So this is and battery also can model different type of technology, the lithium battery technology, the lead acid battery, and also the metal hydride or nickel metal hydride technology. So this was my first part of the presentation, and it was about the some basics. Now it's good to take a look on the running a demo in the IDIs. So here we have a string. I use a saved model to save a little bit time. So in this panel, we have placed some photovoltaic panel in the front side of the building. There is a small shade object here, but now it is not affecting the system. So I will show you how we can make a string from this panel. So if you just open one of the from one of the panel here, we can see that the number of the panel which has been used here is 13. So you can always use a different number here. So we want to make a string of this to connect them and select an inverter for this number of the panels. So from this part of view, you can click on the defining PV string, and in the palette just add new string. And here we need to from the database we need to find one suitable inverter. So as we plan to have just one string, so we search for the inverter, they have just one MPPT input. So probably this one with the capacity of 2.5 kilowatt should be enough. Let's see. So we have selected an inverter, and now for this inverter it shows us the limitation of the voltage. It means that this inverter, for this inverter, the maximum voltage is 600 volt and the minimum operating voltage is 260. So this voltage is the operating voltage. This voltage is the normally open circuit voltage of the string. And this open circuit voltage is based on the temperature of the site, which is for this case it is -11, and the highest for the operating temperature we normally consider the highest temperature in the site, which is something around 37. So by looking into those, this is for a string and this is for the inverter. So by selecting the string, so the voltage will be added. You see we have the capacity which are selected, and this is the load ratio between the string and the inverter. So it's quite okay to have something in range of 1 to 2 for the load ratio. And I just continue to do selection of the panel, and by this selection I am adding them to the string, and electrically I am connecting them in series. So you see all of them are connected. The total open circuit voltage in the cold temperature of -11 is less than 600, so this is quite good, and the operating voltage in normal condition is higher than 260. So the system is quite okay, and the load ratio is 1.6, so it's quite on range. So now we have finished with the stringing, and it is ready for simulation. So for simulation, I just considered 1 week during the April, so to be able to just have a quick simulation run. And for this case, I will start to see how much is the production of the string in this for this period. And let's see. It becomes a little bit slow right now. Okay, and from details in the delivered energy report. Yeah, we can see that under no shade condition, the production for 1 week is about 92 kilowatt hour for the electricity. Okay, so let me just increasing the shading object to be able to have a little bit shade on the system. I will increase the height of this object to 10. Yes, and now we can graphically also visualize the shade to see just a small. Yeah, so you see that the shading is affecting almost all of the panels. And now if I just run quickly one more simulation. So we can see the effect of just this level of shade on the string. So it's almost finished. And from the delivered energy report again. Yeah, we have it here. So it was, if you remember, it was 92 kilowatt hour, and now we reached to almost 80. So it's about probably 15% reduction just to this amount of the shading on the system. So now I show you an example. I saved the example how we can minimize the shade or reduce the shade by using the optimizers on the system. So let me just close this one. And I have the another example here. So if you see here, for this exactly the same string, I consider the DC optimizer in module level. So if you look into the this area, we have the optimizer, and we can have none, which means no optimizer in the panel. We can have a module level optimizer, which is the second one, and we can have the third one as the cell string level optimizer. So in this case, I consider the module level optimizer for all of the panels in the string. And if you want to see the result of this, adding those optimizer, we can see it from the already made simulation. So the result is about 83. So it was 80 before using 80 kilowatt hour before using the optimizer, but after using the optimizer, it for 3.5 kilowatt hour we were able to increase the production, and this level of production just for 1 week during the April. So you can estimate how much it can be during maybe you can run a 4-year simulation instead. So this was about the effect of the optimizer just for shade removing. And now we have another example, which will show you another application of the using the optimizer. So we have a string here. This string, all of the panel belonging to one string and connected to the one inverter. So in that case, because they have different orientation, so it causes a lot of mismatch on the system. So if we just want to see how much its production without any optimization of this string, we can just take a look and see from the delivered energy report that to see how much is the production and how much we can improve it. So it is about 69 kilowatt hour for 1 week, the production of this string with this condition. Now I open another case, which is an optimized of the same system. So now every panel have this optimizer on it. And so if we see the calculation result from the energy delivery report, we can see that the production increased to 82. So if you remember, it was 69 without optimizer, but it reached to 82. So it's roughly about maybe 15% extra production by using the optimizer. So this was my example of running a system, stringing, and also comparing some optimization. I will leave it to Per, and probably we'll come to the question and answers. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, thank you very much, William. So we have a few written questions, and I guess nobody's raised their hand to ask a verbal question, but let's see what we have here. There's somebody that had an audio problem. One question was, can you add 2 sets of panels with different orientations? And I think you've seen that the answer to this question is yes. This is a question for Sven. When dragged and dropped the panels to cover the roof, they were already aligned to the roof and its edges. Does this adjust automatically to the roof surface, or did you enter the parameters for the orientation direction before? No, the grid object will align with the main coordinates of the surface. I think that was what the question was. Can you define PV strings in the model as well?
Well, but maybe we can answer in more detail. So if you insert a panel on a facade, it will be on in the same orientation as the facade. But if you insert it on a flat roof, by default it will be tilted. But you can then influence this tilt. So you can open the panel and give the tilt, which is actually the angle between the building envelope surface and the panel surface. Yeah, so it can be 0 degree, then it is aligned, and this is done automatically. So you just give the angle. You can give this tilt angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I didn't understand quite this question. Can you define PV strings in the model as well? Maybe somebody else did. I didn't understand it.
Well, the question came before the demonstration of William. It was 9:26 probably. It was answered by William's demonstration.
Okay. And then somebody had the invoke work. Yes, it works most of the time. Yeah. Life cycle estimation of the optimizer. Yes, you could obviously do that. If you look at the pricing of the of the individual components. We don't have the ambition of having prices in the database because these things are very complex, as you probably know. But if you have those prices, you can certainly make a life cycle estimation. And but I think the answer is that if this was never profitable, there wouldn't be many many optimizers on the market, and there are many. You know. So sometimes it's profitable for sure. The degradation, does the model take account of the degradation over time? I don't think there's any automatic degradation of the models right at this stage, William.
No, in that case, for the PV modules, we have not considered the degradation, but in the future we will add also this feature, so this is not a big issue.
Yeah. It might be difficult to parameterize though, and different orientations again. Yes, here's a question about how the energy can be used within the building, and there is a system for deciding what meters can use PV and in what order and so on. We didn't show this today. IDE-ICE, when will IDE-ICE 5 be released? Yes, that's a good question. It's released in beta now, as most of you know, and a lot of you are probably already using it in the beta state. So the beta is available for all maintenance customers. The final release, in our good tradition, we haven't set a final release date because we let the quality decide when we release it rather than a specific point in time. There is some product data for PV and inverters is a little bit more difficult, but there are good big databases for PV that we will have hopefully get access to and deliver with the tool. You can add custom panels and inverters for sure, but they require quite a lot of parameters. It can be difficult to put in your own.
There was a question, that was Jan Kröger, who asked whether we can show these parameters a bit to explain, but maybe, yeah, it is a long list, but maybe.
Yes, I think today we're out of time in 1 minute, so
actually we have a raised hand from Andreas Seder.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Andreas, and you can ask your question.
Yes, hello. I was thinking about the inverters and the possible placement in zone, because the inverter will have a heat output and you will need to take that into consideration in some cases. So say you have a 100 kilowatt peak system and 95%, yeah, you will have
yes, there will be some non-insignificant heat emission there. Yes, at the moment this heat is available in the model, so to speak, but we haven't prepared any way of connecting it to a zone. This could probably quite easily be done on the advanced level if you want to, but it's probably a good suggestion that we should be able to allocate the inverters to zones. Yes, not done yet. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And no more raised hands. So
okay. Let's see there if there were any other, lots of sort of not so some sort of more personal questions that we don't think we need to read out now.
Is it possible to add salt batteries?
Not for this. Yeah, for this model, we did not talk about the salt batteries, but for regarding the possibility, yes, we can. So this model of the battery is mainly based on to work with the lead acid, lithium-ion battery, and nickel metal hydride battery. But salt battery can be also considered there.
Right, and there was another question about the number of things that we have in the database, and we will make our best effort to add more, especially panels. It's more difficult to find databases of inverters, actually. Right, so I think we will if I'll share my try to share my screen without sharing my innermost things here. So do you see PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So with that, I think we will finish. We will we could be reading questions forever here. I think we got quite a lot of questions, but what we will do is to provide you with some written answers to the questions, and send that out to you along with a link to a recording of this webinar, so you can take a look at it later on and show your colleagues and so on. So with that, I just wanted to show to share with you the fact that we have some more upcoming webinars now. So with this webinar, we've given 3 of the follow-up webinars for the ICE5 release, and there's two more to go. So in about a month, April 13, we will give the 4th webinar, and the title hasn't been quite decided yet, but we will then focus on more usability aspects, you know, things to ease the use of IDIs, we've done quite a lot of work on the making it easier to build plants in IDIs and air handling units, and there's quite a lot of other key features on the list of features that we would like to show that are not major new developments perhaps, but we think that they will help a lot our users to use the tool. And then the last webinar in May will address optimization issues, new optimization features, and also hopefully how to do this on the cloud. All right, so with that, I thank you very much for staying with us for this whole hour, and welcome back to the next webinar. And thanks, Sven and William, for your presentations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.